Terror in Belgium.
We need to find out who's making these bombs.
ISIS claims responsibility for yet another deadly set of attacks on European soil.
But it is absolutely horrific, and it puts the fear in all of us. We're all at risk.
What the former ambassador to the United Nations says must be done to keep us safe here at home. And some passed, some failed. A look at important bills that lived or died in the Florida legislative session and what your lawmakers say they'll fight for next. It's on This Week in Jacksonville. Good day, I'm Bruce Hamilton. Welcome to This Week in Jacksonville. International attention focused on the terror attacks in Brussels and the world stage saying that we will not give in to fear. I'm joined by Nancy Soderberg, former UN ambassador. Thanks very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Europe has a shockingly dysfunctional approach to intelligence. Will the Obama administration have to abandon its policy instinct and take the lead on a coordinated intelligence effort because of what happened?
I think they're doing exactly that. The Europeans, I think there'll be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking of how they missed this very extensive plot in Brussels after the attacks in Paris last year. And they need to do a much better job of pulsing the network, listening to the chatter, which means tracing the phones, the emails, the sort of the movements, tracking much more carefully who's going to Syria and back. It's not easy, but they need to dig a lot deeper, and that's going to be a shift in the balance of civil liberties that Europeans are very sensitive about, to try and pulse that much more. And we are doing this here. I think the difference is that our Muslim population is very well integrated here. If you see something, you say something here. And there are marginalized second-generation immigrants, largely from North Africa, that feel marginalized. If you look at the suburbs they're living in, they're crummy suburbs, 40% unemployment rate, and very susceptible to radicalization.
And I know to date the president has hoped that history will prove his policy on this prudent in not getting involved with the European intelligence agency's efforts to try and step up intelligence. Is this view harder to maintain in view of what happened both in Brussels and Paris?
First of all, I think they're doing a lot. They don't really talk about it, but they don't have a policy where they're not getting involved in European intelligence. We immediately after Paris offered intelligence assistance. We immediately after these attacks in Brussels have offered extensive. So there's been a lot going on that you don't hear about. I think they'll be more open to the cooperation. We can't really lead it. They have to lead it, but we can certainly be in their lockstep and barrel and showing them how to do it. The larger problem, though, is ISIS has a safe haven in a third of Syria and a third of Iraq, and that cannot sustain itself. They are sitting there freely planning to attack us in both countries. And we need to root out that safe haven, and that's the only way you're going to really stop this. And that means troops on the ground, both in Iraq and Syria. Who those troops are is going to be a big debate, but that's the only way to stop it. You cannot just have an air campaign.
Can we effectively disassemble those sanctuaries?
Not unless you have ground troops. And that's going to, I think, require working more with the Iraqis in Iraq. The Sunni-Shia divide here is very much part of it. ISIS is a Sunni force. The armies in both Syria and Iraq are Shia, so you've got that kind of conflict going on. I think the U.S. is going to have to take more of a lead in Iraq, and the Arabs are going to have to take more of a lead in Syria with the Europeans and NATO forces back. But until you solve the safe haven, where they literally are sitting there creating a caliphate to abuse their population, abuse their women, and threaten us, that is unsustainable and just reprehensible. We need a much stronger effort to root that cause of the terrorism out.
You mentioned Iraq and Syria. Don't we have to look at Libya as well?
They're now in Libya as well. It started in Syria and has moved to Iraq and moved to Libya, but the headquarters are in Syria, so that's the main thing. But yes, all three of those.
There's another fact to consider here. You have the Arab enclave of Molenbeek, which is in Brussels, and you have Saleh Abdeslam, who was one of the Paris attackers, who is now in custody, who was hiding in plain sight there. And that just makes this effort to disassemble these sanctuaries that much more difficult.
Well, it's just embarrassing for the intelligence agents that he was sitting right there. Not to say this is easy, but they should have been able to figure that one out much sooner. But I think what you're going to have is a much more aggressive intelligence coupled with on the ground and getting at this narrative. And it's also a societal issue. If you look at the perpetrators of these horrific acts, they're second-generation immigrant arrogant from Algeria, from Morocco, and they've never integrated. They don't feel like they have a fair shot at prosperity. And so the the initial reaction is to close up the borders and kick these people out, and that's just going to make the problem worse. They're there, they're citizens. What we need to do is survey them, not like Senator Cruz suggested, which is just survey every Muslim. That'll take, one, it won't work, it'll cause a backlash, and it'll pull resources off of those who we really do need to be targeting, and I think that's what will happen.
You talked about Senator Cruz. When you look at the varying opinions of the 5 presidential contenders right now, there's some very disparate and some very outrageous views. That's just going to fuel the fire.
Well, they're not president, so I think people take this with a grain of salt during a presidential campaign, but the instinct is wrong to throw up our borders and kick them out. The other is to resort to torture, which all of the CIA studies on torture show that enhanced interrogation, waterboarding, torture, it doesn't give you any good actionable intelligence, and it causes backfires. And so Donald Trump has endorsed that, but I don't think we're going to go back to that because there's no evidence that it works and lots of evidence that it makes our job harder.
President Obama on Wednesday said that that ISIS is not an existential threat to the United States. Is that naive? And do we have to be vigilant to protect ourselves here at home?
Well, I think what he meant was that it's not about to attack and take over the United States and destroy our existence like a Soviet Union could. But that's really the wrong focus. He also called them the JV team 4 or 5 years ago, which is obviously a major failure of intelligence. I think that had to do with wishful thinking, trying to get out of Iraq. And if we'd stayed, we might not have had this problem here. I think he gets that it's a very, very serious threat now. So I think the focus now is that it's a real threat. It's something that we have to lead on, and we have to get at the root cause of this, which is the safe haven in Iraq, Syria, and as you rightly point out, Libya, and work much more closely with a reluctant European population to track these threats and these terror cells much more carefully and much more deeply.
Bottom line here with the world stage helping, does the European Union need to reinvent its security system?
It needs to significantly enhance its intelligence surveillance of these networks and work more closely with us.
Nancy Soderberg, former UN ambassador, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your time. Well, from the international stage to Florida's lawmakers and changes brought about by the 2016 legislative session. Surprises, disappointments, and what's next as we talk with local lawmakers. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
Hi, checking out the RAV4?
Yep, looking for something fun.
Well, with available Sport Tune suspension, you can turn any trip into an awesome adventure.
Yeah! Yeah! Erin's.
Aren't they the best?
Right now, during Toyota's One for Everyone sales event, get 0% APR for 60 months on a new 2016 Toyota RAV4. That's just 0% APR.
Have fun running those errands.
Toyota, let's go places.
Make tomorrow awesome with Xfinity TV from Comcast. Right now, you can get Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months, with Xfinity On Demand included. Call 1-800-566-8080 today. Xfinity On Demand delivers thousands of hit shows, top movies, and more at no additional cost, so you can catch up on the latest episodes of TV's hottest shows anytime, anywhere. Switch to Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months with Xfinity On Demand included. Plus, ask how you can add HBO, Showtime, or Stars and enjoy award-winning TV shows and movies at home and on the go. There's no term contract and no early termination fee. Plus, it's all backed by our 30-day money-back Comcast customer guarantee, so it's risk-free. Tomorrow could be awesome if you call today. Call 1-800-566-8080. That's 1-800-566-8080. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
We have the chance to forever honor our military men and women by bringing home the USS Adams and creating the state's only naval warship museum.
It's a chance to show our history and to teach our kids about the rich tradition of naval service.
You can make a difference. Make your pledge today, and with your help, we will bring home the Adams.
There's a sound a ball makes when it catches nothing but net. Everyone loves that sound, that precision. At GMC, we get that. Nothing separates the men from the boys, like nothing but net. This is the precision of professional grade. Now, current lessees switch to GMC and get this low-mileage lease on this 2016 Acadia for around $299 per month. GMC, we are professional grade.
0.7 of a mile, the distance between here and here. So why is this family paying $1,000 more in homeowners insurance than this family?
That's surprising, and I want to know why.
Yeah, so did we. An ITeam investigation exposed why homes in the red zone pay millions more for home or renter's insurance.
The ITeam breaks it down for you zip code by zip code.
The one piece of ammunition you need to cut your rates, the red zone. ITeam investigates, Tuesday on the 10 o'clock news.
Welcome back to This Week in Jacksonville. The Florida legislative session 2016 style is in the history books. Finished on time. You can't always say that. And it finished with the House and Senate working remarkably well together. I'm joined here on This Week in Jacksonville by members of the House, Lake Ray. Also with us, Mia Jones and Janet Atkins. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Ms. Jones, let me start with you. Biggest surprise of this legislative session. Is there any bill or measure that you went in and you said, this is going to make it? It didn't?
I think the only thing that I was looking to make it was my hope, my prayer was Medicaid expansion. It wasn't a surprise, but it was definitely one of those things that I knew that Floridians needed, and it was something that I was committed to making sure that it didn't just go by the wayside. And so I did file a bill specifically to expand Medicaid and to do it in the way that Florida has said was the right way to address it. And so although we didn't pass it, it will be something that we will need to really address as we're going forward.
And like the legislature had some different ideas when it came to the budget than did Governor Scott. He didn't get everything he wanted.
He didn't get everything he wanted. There were some issues related to incentive packages for companies to come to the state of Florida. I know he was very disappointed. There were a number of people that were disappointed, but I think in the big picture of things, everything did come together very well. There was certainly concern at the end of the budget as to how the governor was going to treat the budget he gave. I think everybody walked out reasonably happy, other than those of us that wanted to see the Mayport Ferry put in, which was a disappointment and something that I think we're going to take a new look at in moving forward in the future.
So you think it'll be on the ballot come 2017, or at least on the docket, I should say?
I would say to be looking for it, I think, but I believe this time it's about looking at it and showing that there really is an economic benefit to the ferry, which has fallen victim of the veto pen twice now.
Now, one of the things that has been very much in the news, the issue of rape kits and the backlog that exists with FDLE. Thousands of untested rape kits sitting in police departments across Florida could soon be headed to crime labs. Governor Scott signed a bill to help fix the massive backlog. Earlier this year, a study by the Department of Law Enforcement found more than 13,000 rape kits were untested in the state. The new legislation required law enforcement to submit the kits for testing within 30 days, and labs must test the kits within 120 days. Governor Scott's latest state budget has $10.7 million set aside to pay for the kits processing. The new law takes effect July 1st. Ms. Atkins, this was a pet project for you, but the bottom line is it's going to take a while for that backlog to be cleared up. Is that acceptable?
Well, so this was my #1 priority this legislative session. When I first learned about these thousands of rape kits that were sitting on shelves, untested, I was both angry and sad. It's important that we give justice to these victims of sexual assault. And so we began working last summer on this legislation. We worked with the Attorney General's office, FDLE, the Sheriff's Association, police chiefs, and the rape crisis centers to formulate this language. And at the end of the day, I was pleased that we had 68 House members that signed on as co-sponsors to this legislation. It's important that we have the policy in place so that no more is it okay for these kits to sit on these shelves untested. So this legislation will actually prevent any future backlog, and so we're very pleased with the governor signing the bill.
And one of the problems, Mia, is that FDLE has a huge turnover rate when it comes to these crime analysts who take a look at the rape kits and the results. 67% turnover. It's a money issue, it's a funding issue to get people on the job. Have we effectively resolved that with this measure?
I don't think we have, in terms of making sure that we are paying them what is necessary to pay them to keep them to stay. And I think that's something that we can work on, but that's across the board with state workers. And we recognize that they have a lot of opportunities out there. They are talented people, and they are able to ask for what they want and get it. So we have to step up to the plate and say, we're going to pay them what they're worth, have them to be there to do what we need to have them to do, and then make sure that we're consistent with that in years to come.
And like another story that was very much in the headlines, gun-related laws on open carry and campus carry. They passed the House. They did not pass the Senate. Is that a surprise to you?
I think it was a surprise that we didn't get any discussion in the Senate. They died in a committee. One of the committee chairs in the Senate had the ability just to block them from being heard. And basically the way the rules work is that if you can't get it heard in a committee and can't get it all the way through all the committees in the Senate, then they won't take it up. So they died a painful loss to those who were very passionate about those gun bills.
Let me go around the table and start with you, Ms. Atkins. How did what happened this year in 2016 set the stage for next year's legislative session?
Well, I think that both chambers worked very well together. I think there was a lot of collaboration, and I think that's good for Florida when you've got the lawmakers working together to improve the economy. Listen, Floridians are still suffering from the recession. I know small business owners are still hurting. They've not fully recovered. And so looking at how we can increase tax cuts, I think that the move by both chambers to reduce property taxes, I think that's going to be a help to all Floridians across the state.
Ms. Jones?
I think that we had an opportunity to do some great things. The expungement for our young people, for their records to be expunged, was a great step in the right direction. I wanted it to go to 21. We were able to get it to 18. But what that does is it says to a young person that you can have a second chance. When we start to do that, when we start to open up opportunities for them to get in school, to get into the military, and then to get jobs, then we will create a better experience for our communities. I'm looking forward to telemedicine. We made a great step in telemedicine to at least start talking about it and get something on the books. I'm looking forward to next year that we'll be able to move further in that area and being able to save money. We talk about the high cost of health care, and this is an opportunity for us to provide services within our rural communities, to provide services that are expensive, and we may not be able to have specialists everywhere. But if we can provide that service everywhere, then we can provide a better quality of health care for Floridians.
And Mr. Ray, you're looking at the crystal ball?
Well, my look is this year we failed on something that I really was looking at and working on. That's how we put the long-term funding together for investment in our ports, infrastructure, international investing for trade. What we've got is an opportunity to build on that. The three of us, when we walked in the legislature, there was an investment of only $8 million annually in our ports for all of our 14 ports. Walking out, we have invested over $1 billion now in our ports since that time. And it has had a great return of 150,000 jobs. So I think as we continue to work on that, continue to stay focused on it, we'll see more and more results diversifying and spreading our economy so we're not hit so hard when we have the next recessions.
Thank you all for being here. Certainly appreciate your time. Coming up next, we're talking about the big issues your state senators are tackling. That roundtable coming up on This Week in Jacksonville.
Spring is the best time to lease a 2016 ATS from Claude, Nolen Cadillac. Drive a 2016 Cadillac ATS for just $299 a month for 24 months. And remember the Claude Nolen Edge. No dealer fees, no finance markup, saving you thousands. Come in for a test drive today.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
What truck company do you think offers best-in-class V8 fuel economy, best-in-class V8 horsepower, and best-in-class V8 towing?
Chevy. I'm going with Ram.
Definitely Ford.
The new 2016 Chevy Silverado offers best-in-class V8 fuel economy, horsepower, and towing.
They're all Chevy.
It's Truck Month. Get a total value of $7,500 on this Silverado All-Star with a 5.3-liter V8. Plus, find your tag and get $1,000 cash allowance on select Silverado models in stock. See your Southern Chevy dealers.
The hidden ingredient in Parmesan cheese, wood pulp. See what we uncovered in our Food Truth series. Plus, actress Debbie Bezar's appetite for fabulous food.
How do you even get past that crusty outside?
All new Oz.
Monday at 4 on Channel 4.
What was that?
This might be trouble. I'll handle it.
fixed it.
That was fast.
I can tell you, I'm handy.
Run flat tires, available on the new BMW 3 Series. Visit Tom Bush BMW in Jacksonville and Orange Park today for exceptional offers.
If you've become disabled, it's important to call Harrell Herold because we have Social Security disability lawyers who have helped thousands of people navigate the government and what you need to do in that process.
Harrell Herold. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
At Cardinal Cadillac, every customer receives the Claude Nolen Edge. It's simple. No dealer fees, no finance markup, saving you thousands. Get the Edge. Save time and money and start driving your Claude Nolen Cadillac today.
Ronald McDonald House Charities of Jacksonville offers support and temporary lodging to families while their sick or injured children receive medical care at Jacksonville's hospitals. The Players is proud to support Jacksonville Ronald McDonald House. It's 44 days to the Players.
Welcome back to This Week in Jacksonville. We're talking about the laws adopted by the Florida legislature in 2016 and how they set the stage for the future. Joining us for this segment, Senator Erin Bean, Senator Audrey Gibson, and Senator Travis Hudson. Thank you all for very much for being here.
Thank you.
I asked the members of the House who were here, and Senator Gibson, I'll start with you. The biggest surprise from the legislative session for you, or perhaps the biggest disappointment?
I'm not sure there were many surprises. It was a kumbaya session, and I probably could point to one of the larger disappointments was the inclusion of the best and brightest language in the budget. As opposed to a standalone bill so that it could be properly vetted. I think our teachers deserve a little more of a raise, and the best and brightest really is a divisive policy, I believe. And so I think I'm more disappointed with that than any other thing that happened in session.
Erin, a few minutes ago we talked to members of the House and they said that they were disappointed there wasn't more discourse on the issues of open carry and campus carry on the gun control laws. Your take?
Well, first of all, the biggest surprise is we got along. House and Senate, it was night and day versus this year versus last year. I think there was great debate, including open carry and open campus carry. We had that debate. It takes a while. Sometimes it takes more than 1 year to get something done, but the conversation is going, and I think you'll see those bills filed again in the years to come.
Let's talk about the education bills. I think in political circles it's called the train. What happens is when there are stalling tactics that are put in, there are other issues that are lumped together with it, and frankly it creates a situation where lawmakers, Travis, don't know what they're dealing with it. Is that what got in the way of some of the education measures that were on the docket?
Well, I don't believe so this year. If you looked, last year there was a lot of education bills that got left on the table. Everything in what you would call the train this year was something that was vetted in one committee or another over the last 2 years. We really didn't do anything in education the year before because of our ability to not get along. So this year we came together, we took all those issues, and we did one major reform. And there are some really good things in that bill.
Senator Bean, there are two big issues that had a lot of political power behind them, fracking and gaming, and they fell apart. Why?
They did because the pressure, I guess, to just let gambling go uncontrolled in Florida was a tremendous pressure. I think the voters, and particularly voters in Northeast Florida, says we don't want unreined-in gambling. And so you saw the chairman, Senator Bradley, who's from Fleming Island, said, you know what, that's not the direction we're going. Best to not do anything than to let gambling go unchecked in our state.
And Senator, when you came back from Tallahassee, Senator Gibson, what is it your constituents told you about the productivity of the legislative session?
Well, I'm telling my constituents, actually, that the legislative session was very productive. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, you know, they know their city council, they know what Congress does. It's the little middle body that impacts their daily lives almost immediately that they're not so clear on. And so I believe that the constituents, all of our constituents, will be happy that as part of the budget, the legislature bought, if you will, the required local effort in the property tax scheme. And so that will certainly reduce their property taxes or keep them level and put more money in their pocket, which was important to me when we talk about incentive pots that we didn't do and billion-dollar tax cuts, that we make sure that there is something in there for the everyday people. So we have rearranged the governor's
pot just a little bit.
Bruce, she said the word scheme, and scheme can be a dirty word, but there was significant tax relief for all Floridians, over $550 million. And yes, I think it's a wise move if we can reduce the local effort of required local effort of your property
The governor
tax.
asked for, what was it, $1 billion? So he got about half of what he wanted?
Basically.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Yeah, I think so.
Well, and he didn't get it the way he wanted it. We wanted to make sure that there was something in there for people who, like us, that we serve. And so certainly I supported those things for businesses, but we had to find a balance as the Senate between business as well as everyday people.
Travis, did you find that what's happening on the national stage and the body politic that's the presidential campaign right now had any impact at all on how the legislature reacted to certain issues?
You know, maybe a little bit, but mostly, you know, we started in January. So when you started to see those campaigns coming and going full swing on the presidential level, it was probably February, maybe even late February, early March. We were pretty much done by then. So all the stuff had been filed prior to. Everybody was moving stuff through the process. So I don't think it had as much effect on the party politics as it would have if we had a later session.
And let me go back to the question about what you're hearing from the people in the neighborhood. Erin, when you talk to your constituents, what kind of feedback do you get?
Well, we're on the speaking tour right now, and so if there's a Rotary Club I'm not speaking to yet, I'd love for them to invite me to come and say exactly what happened, what failed, what didn't fail. First of all, I like to brag. Our colleges and universities in Northeast Florida did extremely well. Jacksonville University, UNF, Florida State College at Jacksonville, all did extremely well, and that's the story we're going for with in the addition of a whole bunch of other things that we'll talk about as we have time to talk about. The USS Adams downtown is going to be a big deal for Jacksonville and downtown.
All right, very quickly, in just a couple of short words, let's take a look at what you think the 2016 session did to set the stage for 2017. You've each got 15 seconds. Travis.
Well, I think 2016 we accomplished a lot. 2015 we didn't accomplish a lot. 2016 we did. I think 2017 will come in and accomplish the stuff that didn't pass in 2016.
I believe that education bill that Senator Hudson talked about will rise up again. He mentioned there are some good things, but there are some bad things in there, particularly as it relates to how student populations could be affected, giving parents the ability to move their kids from any school to any school in the entire state. So next year, we're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, big election year. Everybody in the Senate is going to be running for re-election. Everybody in the House, our presidential election. Exciting year in politics in Northeast Florida.
And you're optimistic about Florida's future, given what's happened?
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
All right. Thank you very much for being here. Certainly appreciate it.
Bruce.
This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. Kent returns next week with Congressman Ted Yoho. A legislative update from Capitol Hill. I'm Bruce Hamilton. Appreciate your watching.
At News 4 Jax, we're always covering the news, even when we're not on TV. Stay informed, on the go, and online at news4jax.com.